Hello and welcome back to Big Blankie. I am your host Allie, and today I'll be introducing you to my tarot collection using a list of prompts created by MoonBaby, which you can find in the description below if you'd like to follow along. These are just a few of the decks in my collection, and although I do take my tarot study seriously, we are probably going to share some jokes along the way. So relax and settle in for our first prompt. So our first prompt is your most expensive deck. This is the 2001 re-release of the Vertigo Tarot by Dave McKeon and Rachel Pollack. So I bought this deck on eBay back in 2020 for $125, not including the cost of shipping. It is long out of print. Dave McKeon's artwork is digital collage, early digital collage, that looks very of its time, but also extremely organic because of all the texture he uses in his work. He manages to make it look very sculptural and alive. Most of the cards of the major arcana are characters in the Vertigo comics, and the minor arcana are fully illustrated, but not as recognizable scenes like we see in the Waite-Smith deck. The minors still have a visual progression throughout the suit, and one of my favorite things about this deck are the court cards. I usually don't like court cards because, come on, what are we doing? A royal court? Ugh. But in this case, I do appreciate when you can lay down cards in a line and see a story between the suits and not just the numbered sequence. I enjoy this continuity of the pages as a torso, the knights as horse heads, and the queens and kings as faces. I think it highlights the roles being essentially the same across all four suits, just flavored differently in each element. In addition to the gorgeous artwork, you also get an exceptional book with it, written by Rachel Pollack, the author of 78 Degrees of Wisdom. Pollack also took over the Vertigo comic Doom Patrol from Grant Morrison in 1993, so she was obviously the perfect person to write the book on the Vertigo Tarot deck. And it's a very good little white book. Reading through it today reminded me of how much work still needed to be done in the mid-90s to get comic books taken seriously by mainstream audiences. And I think that is an important point because at the time that this deck came out, we weren't seeing a lot of pop culture decks yet. This one was definitely the first one I ever saw. Now, you can get a tarot deck with all kinds of pop culture themes today, but even as recently as 10 years ago, I remember people discussing online whether you can get good readings from a less serious deck that related the cards to characters in a popular IP. Hell, people are probably still having that argument somewhere. Tarot discussions are just as cyclical as anything else. But it's obvious this was a discussion at the time that the Vertigo Tarot came out. I originally wanted this tarot deck because of its place in my personal tarot history. I remember scrolling through the few images available to me on a stranger's GeoCities website as a teenager, when I didn't have access to the deck or money to buy it. So ordering it on eBay felt like a gift from my inner child, and I'm very happy to have it in my collection. So the second prompt is your least expensive deck. Okay, bitches, this is the Miss Cleo Power Tarot deck, and oh my god, I love this deck so fucking much! I bought it for $4.68 on Amazon because I wanted to experiment with altering a tarot deck, and I didn't want to do it on anything expensive or precious. So I went looking for a cheap deck and I found this one. If you were a teenager or older in the US in the late 90s, then I know you remember the late night commercials for Miss Cleo's Psychic Hotline. So when I saw this deck, I figured this would be the cheap deck I mutilated, and I could just enjoy having some kitschy nostalgia as a bonus. So imagine my surprise when I opened the box and discovered these images. I mean, holy shit, they are so bold and vibrant and just beautiful. It's obviously a Waite Smith inspired deck, but it's really leaning into the ancient Egyptian style, and the line work and color actually reminds me of a comic book version of the Bible I had when I was really little. It turns out the deck doesn't have anything to do with Miss Cleo, they just slapped her image on the front of it. The little white book tells us it's co-authored by L. Thomas Trosclair, and there are a couple places in the little white book that are attributed to Miss Cleo, but I've read that she didn't really have anything to do with it. The cards were designed and illustrated by J.F. Lambert and colored by Seth Stevens. As much as I like this deck, it's too bad we didn't get a Miss Cleo deck that was created under her direction before she died. I think a lot of people don't know this, but Miss Cleo actually could and did read tarot cards. I've seen some videos on YouTube where she's interviewed later in life and then does tarot readings. So you should do a little search and find them. I think she was actually underappreciated as an intuitive tarot reader because of her role in the Psychic Hotline commercials. And I would have loved to have seen a deck made by her. Regardless, I still love the images in this deck. I love the old school comic book style with the bold lines, the flat color, the muscular superhero type bodies that really make these figures look larger than life and kind of highlight them as archetypes rather than everyday people. I love that it's a deck full of people of color and these strong, dynamic poses. It just gets me so excited every time I pull it out. I did alter it. You can see I've cut the borders off and then rounded the edges. I love how with the borders cut off, I can lay them right up next to each other like in a tableau. I also added symbols to the top corner of each card because I'm bad at remembering the astrological and elemental associations. My original plan was to go in with some glittery gold nail polish and add some sparkle just to make them look rich, but I haven't done that yet. I still could. So yeah, I bought this deck back in 2018 just to try some deck alteration techniques on a cheap deck and ended up accidentally buying something so special. I don't think I have another deck that gets me as excited as this one does whenever I pick it up. It's just amazing. It looks like it's no longer available on Amazon, but you can find it via other sources online. It's just going to be a lot more expensive than the $4 I bought it for back in 2018. But hey, what isn't these days, you know? All right, number 3. The deck other collectors want to steal from your collection. This is the Slow Holler Tarot deck. This was a collaborative deck made by 32 visual artists and 4 writers, all of whom are queer, Southern, or both. And that's exactly what it feels like. It is a queer and Southern deck. I backed the Kickstarter campaign, I think in 2016, and then they sent out the decks in 2017. This is a highly sought after, out of print deck that is currently going for crazy money on eBay, like $2,000. I'm keeping it. Just want to make sure I put that out there. It did not come in a box, so I keep it in this wooden box my cousin gave me. It did come with a beautiful book and a spread cloth with this red string. Oh, that looks like shit. Hey tarot travelers, have you or a friend suffered from creases in spread cloths due to poor life choices? Well, you may be entitled to financial compensation. I tried, okay? This is how you do a collaborative deck. There's a very specific color palette the artists were instructed to use, and it allows all of these artists' different individual styles to sing while keeping it cohesive and making the deck feel like one universe together. I just love it. The deck creators chose to rename a lot of the cards to modernize it and push back against the European patriarchal focus of older decks and make it more inclusive and therefore more relevant. The suits are stones, knives, vessels, and branches. The courts are students, travelers, architects, and visionaries. And then some of the majors have been renamed, like the Fool is the fledgling, the Empress is the kindred, the Emperor is the navigator, and so on. And this actually brings up something I've been thinking about a lot as I draw images for cards for my own deck. How do you feel about renaming the tarot cards? I like it in this deck because it shows the mindset of the collective who made it. At what point should the creator just make an oracle deck with their own characters and titles and systems? I'd love to hear what you think. Anyway, these cards are gorgeous. I hadn't been collecting decks for long when this Kickstarter came up, but because of the queer Southern identity, it felt like it was for me. And I jumped on it, and I'm so glad I didn't let this deck get away. It is truly one of the more special decks in my collection, and I'm lucky to have it. Prompt number 4 is your strangest deck. My strangest deck is probably this Ceccoli Tarot deck I converted into a Thoth deck. I bet you never seen one like this before. I was so excited about the Ceccoli Tarot when it first came up for pre-order back in 2014. Big-headed, sad-eyed girl tarot decks are a dime a dozen, but I like these big-headed, sad-eyed girls. The images looked very watery, dreamy, and I thought I was gonna break into intuitive reading by using this deck and its imagery. It showed up absolutely crammed into this tuck box, and there was no way to get it out without ripping the box. And that was my first disappointment with this deck, and it kind of set the tone for what my relationship with the deck was going to be like. This deck feels like there were already a bunch of images out there by this artist that were arbitrarily assigned tarot card titles without much thought. Some of the images are actually really similar to each other, and it makes it hard to tell which card is which or why it's different from the other card. Some of the images are in a slightly different style than the others, like their earlier work or part of a different series or something. It just feels very forced, and unfortunately it ended up being very difficult for me to read with. Well, I eventually decided it was time to learn the Thoth Tarot. So, as an exercise, I decided to do the unthinkable and cut off the borders on these cards, including the titles. And once I'd done that, I reassigned titles to the cards according to the Thoth system. And this was a really fun way to engage with the Thoth system early in my study, and now I have a totally custom deck that no one else has. Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying my assigning of the card titles to the existing Nicoletta Ceccoli artwork is correct or better. I essentially did the same thing as the Los Scarabeo team did when they made it a Waite Smith deck. But it was really fun to think with, and it gave me a new way to interpret the images. This deck is still widely available on Amazon and all over the internet, and they even published an oracle deck to go with it a couple years later, which I never bought, because honestly, the tarot deck probably should have been an oracle deck in the first place. But anyway, since I cut all the borders off, it fits right in the box. Look at that. Prompt 5 is the deck other collectors are least likely to have in their collection. Other than that fucked up Ceccoli Tarot deck, I would say it's probably going to be the Hillbilly Tarot. I don't really see people talking about this much, although there is a really good walkthrough of this deck here on YouTube. This deck was made by Reverend Dr. David Brown, and you can still get a copy on his website. It'll run you about $25. This is a Thoth-based deck, but the archetypes and suits have been reassigned Hillbilly titles. My favorite thing about this deck is the courts, because they're all famous or infamous people from Tennessee, which is where I'm from, so that's fun.
Breaking news! White Jesus born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee.
I do have some issues with some of the choices Brown made for this deck. I don't love that he included the Confederate flag on a card. Yes, that is something we still see in the South and in Tennessee, but I'm not proud of it. That said, no one said everything in the tarot is going to be beautiful or just or something you want to look at. It's important to confront bigotry and biases and ignorance. So I'm not mad that it's there. If you're using it as a tool for that, that's probably a good thing. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised it's in there, but I'm also not excited about it. Another strange choice in this deck is the inclusion of a black character in the deck. I want to see diversity in my tarot decks. We have enough decks with thin white bodies all over the cards, but you would expect all of the cards in a Hillbilly Tarot deck to be white because that's what hillbillies are. So explain to me why through the whole deck there is one black character and it is the devil. So if you're going to use this well-known Faustian legend in your Hillbilly Tarot deck, why not make the devil in the card white like every other character in the deck? What are we thinking? I still like this deck because it's kitschy and in most instances it's clever in its reimagining of the Thoth Tarot as a hillbilly allegory. That said, it's not a deck I reach for often. It's more like a novelty deck in my collection, but one I don't see discussed much in tarot circles and one other collectors are less likely to have. Prompt number 6 is your oldest deck or your first deck. And I'm going to talk about my oldest deck because I'll talk about my first deck later. So my oldest deck is this one JJ Swiss I found on Etsy in 2015 for $25. I wanted it because one of my first introductions to tarot cards was Dark Shadows, the soap opera that ran from 1966 to 1971. Some of the characters in the show used tarot cards, and I wanted to find the deck they were using. And it turns out they were actually combining cards from multiple decks. And the one JJ Swiss was one of the decks that would have been available at the time, thanks to Stuart Kaplan of US Games. So that was one of the decks that they were using in the show. This is a Marseille style deck that gets its name, the JJ, from the Popess and Pope cards being switched out for the Roman gods Juno and Jupiter. Apparently their Protestant consumers didn't want Catholics on their tarot deck. But I really like this deck. It has the orange plaid backs and a soft linen finish. It's really nice to handle. I wish people would print cards with this finish today. Oh my god, the amount of plasticky cards that come out these days that stick together, and these cards would never. They are buttery smooth. Anyway, I love the coloring choices, and even though Pip decks or Tarot de Marseille are not my go-to, this deck is really fun to read with. It has an old school little white book that comes with it and is useful, but in 2020 I was scrolling around on eBay and found this book that goes with it for $10. And it has a lot more info on the cards and spreads and how to read them. So if you're into vintage decks, I recommend this one. You can usually find reasonably priced copies of it on eBay, and I've seen more copies of this expanded guide floating around as well. It's a good time. Number 7 is your newest deck. I got this one for Christmas, this past Christmas. We were walking down Market Street here in San Francisco on Thanksgiving, and I saw a large print in the window of a store. It was the Star, which is my favorite tarot card, but it was Harvey Milk as the Star. And I stopped and looked, and there next to it was this deck, the Modern Queer Tarot, and this giant, beautiful book to go with it. And I was like, oh my god, I want that. Look how gorgeous. And my husband remembered the store, and he went back and he got it for me for Christmas. This deck was conceptualized and written by Robert Barber and John Callahan, and then the images are by Tanya Wiskarth. The book is sold separately, and it has full color reproductions of the cards, nice and big so you can really see the detail, and thankfully big readable print. Each card features an important figure in queer history, and the book gives you the history of each person and why they're associated with the archetype they were assigned, so there's a lot to learn here. This one being my newest deck, I'm still learning a lot about it, so I know it seems like I don't have much to say about it, but I just haven't spent as much time with it as I have some of my other decks. The deck that made you want to collect decks in the first place. Okay, This is the Wild Unknown Tarot. I have multiple versions of this deck, the first edition and then the second edition with the reworked cards, and then the pocket version of the second edition in a 10 because I love a deck in a 10. This is not only the deck that gave me permission to collect decks, it's also the deck that brought me back to tarot and really got me into it in the fullest sense. My first deck, the Aquarian Tarot, told you we were going to get back to that. I bought the Aquarian Tarot for myself out of the few decks that were available to me at the time, and I found it really difficult to read with, and I honestly still do. So after struggling with it for a few years, I said fuck it and put it away. Tarot was just not for me. And then I went through an important atheist phase, which eventually softened into a more moderate agnostic phase. And then I eventually ran into images of the wild unknown online, and I was transfixed. But I had declared myself not a tarot person, and so I really hemmed and hawed over this deck before I finally ordered myself one and started studying tarot again, but for real this time. And that's when I found tarot communities online again and discovered that it was not only okay to have more than one deck, it could actually be very enjoyable to grow a collection of them over time. And I don't know if I would have let myself have a second deck, let alone a collection of decks, if I hadn't seen images of this one online. It came to me at a big turning point in my life, and it was exactly right for me to get back into tarot, to study it seriously, and to get to know the images of this deck. This first edition has extremely thick cards, unnecessarily thick, some might say. It is difficult and painful to shuffle, if I'm being honest. But I still use it because I prefer the original images to the ones that Kim Krantz decided to redraw or recolor for the second edition. The second edition is a lot more comfortable to handle, and the smaller pocket version even more so. So I actually use all three versions of this deck depending on what I'm doing. Just like with anything else that gets popular, this deck has its fair share of haters these days, but those dissenting voices were pretty quiet for a long time, I gotta say, so I wouldn't listen to the haters if I were you. This deck is awesome. I love the line work and the use of color. I think paying attention to the combinations of colors across the cards in a spread creates a deeper meaning and interpretations, and the cards naturally lend themselves to combining in meaningful ways. It's just gorgeous. All right, number 9, our last prompt. Your favorite deck from your collection. It's the Neon Tarot, I'm almost embarrassed to say. This is a brightly colored Waite-Smith deck I found on Amazon that has one of those bullshit scrambly letter store names, which leads me to believe that this is some Temu shit. It is what it is, unfortunately, and I'm obsessed with this deck. It's the reason I haven't used my Modern Queer Tarot much since I got it for Christmas. I bought this back in October before a big move across the country, and I've used it almost exclusively ever since. And I've never enjoyed or gotten so much out of the Waite-Smith images before getting this deck. Truly, the recoloring of this deck has completely changed my mind about the Waite-Smith deck. It's like the color palette my dreams happen in. It's all black out in the distance, but the things around me are these bright, cool-toned colors. So that's 9 decks from my collection, but I have so many more. Are there any other good collection sharing tags out there I should do? Let me know down below. And I don't know, maybe I'll come up with my own tarot tag one of these days. If you like this video, consider making your own VR with these prompts and show us your decks. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on my Big Blankie today, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!